Our cities are some of the most incredible, complex systems humans have ever created. But the way we plan them, it's kind of stuck in the past. Today, we're going to dive into a really powerful new idea called urban informatics. And it's a completely different way of thinking about how we can understand, manage, and really shape the future of our cities. Okay, let's get into it.
So here's what we've got on tap. We're going to start by laying out the big problem with our traditional ways of planning. Then we'll introduce this idea of a new urban intelligence that could solve it. We'll break down a 3-level upgrade to make it all real, see how all the pieces connect, and then wrap up by asking some pretty big questions about where these smarter cities are headed.
All right, so first things first, what's the fundamental issue here? Well, our cities are just unbelievably dynamic. They're always changing, always evolving. But the tools and, more importantly, the mindsets we use to manage them, they just haven't kept up.
And this really gets to the heart of the conflict. For decades, planning has been this exercise in predict and control. The idea was you could create a master plan, like a blueprint, and the city would just follow along. But that's not how cities work, is it? The reality is the cities are more like living organisms. They're complex, they're adaptive, and they're constantly throwing us curveballs.
Here's a great way to think about it. Traditional planning is like trying to navigate a crazy, bustling city using a single photograph that was taken 10 years ago. It's just totally mismatched with reality. What we really need is a live, interactive video feed. And that, right there, is where the solution starts to come into focus.
So to bridge that huge gap, we need a whole new kind of urban intelligence. And this is exactly where the field of urban informatics steps into the picture.
Now, urban informatics isn't just a buzzword for collecting more data. Not at all. It's a fundamental mindset shift. It's about moving away from those static 10-year master plans and moving towards a state of continuous, adaptive intelligence. It's about learning from the city and responding to it pretty much in real time.
And what's under the hood? Well, it's powered by 4 core capabilities. You've got urban sensing, using things like sensors and mobile data to get that live feed. Then there's urban data analytics, using machine learning to spot patterns we'd never see. Urban simulation lets us test out big ideas in virtual digital twins of our cities. And crucially, collaborative governance uses digital tools to actually bring citizens into the conversation.
Okay, this all sounds fantastic in theory, right? But how do we actually make it happen? Well, the source material lays out a really smart roadmap, a coordinated upgrade across 3 different levels of practice.
Let's start at the top with level 1.
This is the big picture stuff. We're talking about the national planning departments, the big city authorities, the ones who need to build the foundational systems and frameworks that everyone else is going to use. They have to set the stage.
So what does that look like in practice? Well, it's all about building the core infrastructure. Institutions can create things like urban data observatories that give you real-time dashboards on the city's health. And they can build those digital twin platforms. Seriously, think of them like flight simulators for cities, where you can test a new policy virtually before you spend billions in the real world. Of course, to run all this, you need new in-house teams of experts, which they're calling urban intelligence units.
Next up, let's talk about level 2.
This level drills down to the people on the ground. We're talking about the individual city planners, the ones who are actually using these new systems to make decisions day in and day out.
So yeah, the role of the planner has to completely evolve. An urban planner isn't just someone who reads data reports anymore. They need to become a skilled data interpreter and analyst. And a community planner's job? It shifts to helping residents collect and use their own data, something called participatory sensing. It's a huge change.
And that brings us to the final level. And honestly, this might be the most critical piece of the puzzle. Look, none of this is going to work long-term if we don't totally rethink how we train the next generation of planners in our universities and professional programs. It has to start there.
And the difference is just night and day. The old model, you'd have students designing these perfect, static master plans for some made-up site. The new model throws them into the deep end. They're working with real city partners, designing adaptive, data-driven systems that solve actual urban problems. It's learning by doing, with real stakes. Now, the real magic is that these 3 levels aren't supposed to exist in their own little silos. They're designed to work together, to create this powerful feedback loop, where each part makes the other parts stronger. And you can see that virtuous cycle right here. Step 1, the institutions provide the platforms and the data. Step 2, planners on the ground use those tools, but just as importantly, they give feedback on what's working and what's not. And step 3, education keeps supplying new talent that knows how to operate and even improve this whole system. It's a cycle of constant improvement.
Now, this vision is incredibly powerful, but we've got to be realistic. We need to pump the brakes for a second, because making this happen comes with some really significant challenges that we absolutely have to talk about.
3 major questions really stand out. First, equity. Is all this data-driven planning going to benefit everyone, or will it just help those who are already well-resourced and deepen the digital divide? Second, technocracy. When algorithms start shaping our cities, who's holding them accountable? Who's behind the curtain? And finally, there's institutional inertia. Let's be honest, can these huge, slow-moving planning departments actually change their stripes?
This quote from the urban scientist Michael Batty really nails it. At the end of the day, the goal isn't just about having cooler, smarter tools. It's about fostering this mindset of continuous learning, of experimentation, and of adaptation for every single person involved in building our cities.
And that leaves us with one last massive question to think about. The technology to build smarter cities? It's pretty much here. But the real work, the hard work, is making sure that as our cities get more intelligent, they also become more equitable, more inclusive, and more democratic for all of us.